Next, we'll be reviewing how to solve an equation with decimals or fractions. But first, we have to review the names of the place values because that will help us. So here we have a number, 3,627 and 81 thousandths is how I would read this, rather than just 3627.081. So the way I knew how to read it is that I knew which number was in each place value. So in this question, the 3 is in the thousandths place. The 6 is in the hundreds place. The 2 is in the tens place. The 7 is in the ones place. Then we have the decimal point. The 0 is in the tenths place. The 8 is in the hundredths place. And the 1 is in the thousandths place. Using these decimal places, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, that's going to be able to help me solve an equation that involves decimals. So here's an equation with decimals. We're going to solve it two different ways. The first option is handy if you have a calculator, and what you would do is basically do the exact same thing you've always done. You would see if you could simplify either side. In this case, we can't. There are no like terms on one side of the equation. Then you would use inverse operations to isolate the variable. So we would add 37.40 because that's the opposite of subtracting it, or the inverse of subtracting it. Okay. That gives us 0. 8.32 plus 37.4 is 45.72. And then we would divide both sides by 0.35. And we would end up with approximately, when you put this into your calculator, you're going to get a long decimal, but about 130.6285.714. Now, when you write this out, usually going to about 2 decimal points is sufficient, and then just change the equal sign to an approximate sign, which is that kind of little squiggle there. Now, another way to solve this exact same problem would be to do what we call clearing the decimals. So the first thing I would do is I would want to find the decimal value in my problem that goes out the furthest. So here I have 2 decimal points, 2 decimal points, 2 decimal points. So all of these go out to 2 decimal values. If you remember in the example before where we were reviewing, that is the hundredths place. If I have a largest decimal value in the hundredths place, what I can do is multiply both sides of the equation by 100. If my longest decimal only went out to the tenths place, I would be multiplying both sides of this equation by 10. If I had 3 decimal places, that's the thousandths place, so I'd be multiplying both sides by 1,000. Whatever your longest decimal is, go to that place value and multiply by that number. So what's going to happen here is that all of these decimals are going to end up becoming integers. 100 times 0.35 is 35. 37.4 times 100 is 3,740. 8.32 times 100 is 832. So it eliminates, or it clears out, all of those decimals, and this is an equivalent equation. So to solve this equation, I would add 3,740 to both sides. That is 0. And this would leave me with 4,572. And I would divide now both sides by 35. and I would get that same answer that I did in the last question. And then I would round that off to approximately 130 and 63 hundredths. Now, when I go to check this, you'll try to get an exact answer. So I would go back to where I had this as a fractional value instead of the decimal value. And when I would do my check, I would put in this fractional value for x to check my answer. If I had done this problem with the method on the left, then I would just keep this long decimal in my calculator and immediately multiply that by 0.35, which gives me 45.72. And then 45.72 minus 37.4 is in fact 8.32. So this does check, and that is the correct answer.